Okay, so we need to solve this quadratic equation, and there are a couple ways to do this, so I'm going to go through it. Now, this is actually a fairly simple one to factor. There are other videos I have of factoring, so the point of this video is not to show you factoring, it's to solve a quadratic equation. So if you struggle with factoring, check out some of the other videos that I have about factoring. But so here we're going to factor this into two binomials because x squared plus 7x minus 8, that's the same thing as x plus 8 times x minus 1. Now, if I have two numbers, a and b, and I multiply them together and I get 0, I know that one of them must be 0 because if I multiply any amount of things together and I get 0 as the product, then one of them must be 0. So I say that a is 0 or b is 0. This is called the zero product property. So here what I do is I take these two factors, x plus 8, and I set them both equal to 0. Oops. So I get x is equal to negative 8, and x is equal to positive 1. So I have two answers here. Now if you think about what this looks like, this is a parabola. So if I look at a graph of this, notice that this parabola crosses the x-axis at two spots, 1 and negative 8. Those are the two values that I had for my solution to this equation. It's no coincidence because if you think about what this is y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. That's a general form for a quadratic. So I have 0 is equal to x squared plus 7x minus 8. Y is equal to 0. On a graph, where is the y value 0? Here I can see y is 5, y is 10, y is negative 5, y is 10. Well, all along the x-axis, that is where y is equal to 0. So where does this parabola intersect where y is equal to 0? On the x-axis, or where it crosses the x-axis. That's always going to be the case. So you can graph using this software, GeoGebra. You can graph using your graphing calculator, or you can factor. Now briefly, I will just touch upon the quadratic formula. Quadratic formula is, again, the general form for a quadratic is y is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c, where a and b are number values that are coefficients in front of the variable x, and c is a constant. So here, a is equal to 1, because there's an invisible 1, b is equal to 7, and c is equal to negative 8, because this is really plus negative 8. The quadratic formula tells us that x is going to be equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All I need to do is plug these values in. So I get negative 7 plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is 49, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is negative 8, all over 2 times 1. So I get negative 7 plus or minus the square root of 49. This actually becomes plus 32 all over 2. And so I get that x is equal to negative 7 plus or minus the square root. 49 plus 32 is actually 81. And we know the square root of 81. So I get negative 7 plus or minus 9 over 2. So this could either be negative 7 plus 9 over 2, or negative 7 minus 9 over 2. Negative 7 plus 9 is 2, divided by 2 is 1, and negative 7 minus 9 is negative 16, divided by 2 is negative 8. these are the two solutions that I had back here. So we can factor it, we can graph it, or we could use a quadratic formula. Now, the quadratic formula will always work. It will find imaginary solutions. So here, sometimes the parabola doesn't intersect the x-axis. Sometimes we can't factor a quadratic, but we can always use the quadratic formula.